I'd like to welcome guests to our annual action plan public hearing number 2 for the 2026-27 annual action plan and amendment of our 2018 and 19 annual action plan. Going over our agenda for tonight, and by the way, I'm Henry Fitz. I am a grant management and research coordinator in the Commissioner's Office of Neighborhood and Business Development, and I'll be taking us through the majority of our presentation today. For our agenda, we'll start with a background on the consolidated plan and the annual action plan. Then we'll go through a review of our proposed 2026-27 annual action plan, including specific projects and budgets and proposed outcomes for the coming fiscal year. Then we'll have a review of a proposed substantial amendment to the 2018-19 annual action plan. And finally, we'll close out by reviewing remaining engagement opportunities and next steps as we finalize the plan. Throughout the agenda, there will be 3 Q&A portions of our meeting where you'll have the opportunity to provide comments and questions, and we will be able to respond to members of the public. As for instructions for our participation, first, our goals for our guests tonight, to learn about these draft plan documents, hear our presentation, and share comments in response to what you've heard. And we are welcoming comments both in writing and verbally. You can submit written comments at any time using the Q&A box in the Zoom window, and we will be responding to those, throughout the meeting. There's also the opportunity for verbal participation that will take place again during those designated Q&A portions of the agenda. And we will unmute you to allow you to ask a question or provide a comment. And we'll just ask that you keep comments and questions to under 2 minutes to allow other members to participate. In terms of instructions specific to Zoom, just familiarize yourself with these icons that we have here. There's the show captions, which allows you to toggle on and off the closed captioning if desired. We have the Q&A box where you'll be able to provide written questions and comments at any time during the webinar, and where you'll see responses from our staff if we're able to respond quickly to those. And we also have the raise hand button if you'd wish to speak verbally during those Q&A sections of the agenda. If you're calling in by phone and not on a web browser or Zoom app, you'll need to dial *9 to raise your hand, and dial *6 to unmute yourself. So let's begin with background on our federal funding that we received from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. Rochester receives about $12 million a year in federal funding through the 4 HUD entitlement grant programs: CDBG, Home, ESG, and HOPWA. Community Development Block Grant, Home Investment Partnership Program, Emergency Solutions Grant, and Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS. We've been a recipient of all of those 4 grant streams, since they've been active. CDBG has been active for over 50 years, and we have a long history of administering successful programs here in the Rochester community. Our HUD funds are a vital part of the city's resources that we can deploy to tackle important priorities and goals that the city outlines in plans such as the Rochester 2034 plan, comprehensive plan of 15-year strategies for enhancing the city. Things like neighborhood reinvestment, expanding home ownership, creating and expanding affordable rental units, employment opportunities for youth, public services that can support community development goals. Every 5 years, the city is required to develop a new consolidated plan to inform how we will do our work with the federal funds. And then each single year, we do what's called an annual action plan. That's illustrated in more detail on this slide, which is an infographic, kind of illustrates the relationship between this big 5-year overarching plan and then how that informs the individual annual action plans that are tied to it. So we are going into year 2 of the current 5-year plan. And you'll see in the graphic that each annual action plan then results in a performance report, consolidated annual performance and evaluation report. That is posted each September and outlines how we spent the money and what types of outcomes we were able to achieve. But back to the overarching plan, that was a larger project that took place last year with a bit more community engagement, to really set the stage for the upcoming 5 years. The 5-year plan includes a citizen participation plan, which outlines how we'll engage with the public through these processes to get their input, to make sure we're hearing important community needs and priorities and incorporating those into our planning efforts. It also included a needs assessment and market analysis to make sure our strategies are informed by the latest available data on we can understand our housing market and our economy and where things are trending, what our biggest needs are. Those components then informed our 5-year strategic plan, which outlines what our top priorities would be and the goals we hope to achieve in addressing those priorities, including, allocation of funding and our projections for over the next 5 years. And lastly, the 5-year plan includes year 1 of the 5. So even though we're now going into year 2, it ties back to this 5-year plan. It's still part of this bigger strategy. The 5-year plan is called the consolidated plan because it consolidates all those 4 grant sources we talked about. Previously, budgeting and planning had been done separately for those, and HUD at one point consolidated planning into a single document that would cover all 4 sources and a complete budget of federal funding. So we talked about how we have a public engagement process that is a big part of what we do with our HUD funds. And that is described, how we'll do our public engagement is described in our citizen participation plan. So this is an outline of our public engagement process that we've been going through for the current year. We started out with a public notice that was issued March 9th, soliciting input from the public as to priorities and community needs. And that input was taken and helped inform our draft plan that we've recently published. We also received input via in writing, as well as at a public hearing that we held on March 17th at City Hall, and via a online survey form. And that, again, all informed the development of our draft 26-27 annual action plan. That was then published on May 11th via another public notice and is required to be published publicly for 30 days and public comment per HUD regulations. During that 30-day period, we're having our second public hearing tonight, virtually via Zoom. And then I'll have a third public hearing to close out the 30-day period that will be overseen by City Council to final opportunity to provide comments. But importantly, yes, this 30-day comment period is the opportunity for the public to review the draft plan and provide comments in response to what the city's proposing. This plan is scheduled to go before City Council for adoption June 16th, and then it'll be transmitted to HUD, and we will kick off our program year July 1st, which is in line with the city's fiscal year. So as we talked about, the annual action plan, is in line with the city's fiscal year, covers a period from July 1st through June 30th of next year, provides a budget and strategic outline of how the city is planning to spend our federal dollars for the upcoming year 2 of the current 5-year plan for all those 4 major grant sources, and ties back to that overarching 5-year plan. And it'll have a summary of any input that we've received throughout the public engagement process. Here's a slide reviewing our recent history of HUD grant awards and program income. This year, we were very pleased that funding largely was maintained at the same level. There had been worries under the current federal administration that funding could be cut and potentially significantly. Thankfully, funding has been preserved and is largely flat compared to last year. You'll see, we are overall only $43,000 less in the formula grants than we got last year. Where we're seeing a slightly larger decrease is on the program income side. Program income is federal dollars that are coming back to us. They were given out as loans, and now those loans are being repaid, and those funds are putting back into use as what's called program income. So it still gets budgeted in the same manner in the annual action plan. So those program income can really fluctuate year to year depending on the loans that are out there and what's coming due. So it's a little bit harder to predict. And this year, it's just a lighter year for home in particular. So on the total, we are expecting $12.66 million, which is about 5.8% less than last year. Another important piece of context is that our HUD funding, while crucial and provides for many services that are essential for vulnerable populations and high priority projects, it is a relatively small percentage of the city's overall annual spending, less than 2% when you compare that to the city's total budget, over $800 million to things like, police and fire and snow plowing and everything like that. So again, HUD funds are crucial. They do some things that normal funds can't do, but a small piece of the pie. We encourage members of the public to also participate in the city's other public engagement opportunities for the regular budget process. That's about to be going to City Council in June as well. There's opportunities and speak to council and provide input on the proposed budget that was released just a few weeks ago. Again, our draft plan includes $12.66 million in funds across those 4 major grant streams. And those funds are budgeted into 25 projects in the plan, and we'll go over those in a moment. we won't read through every project here, but just putting them up on the screen so you can get a quick glimpse, and then you can go review the plan itself for further reading. But a lot of our programs are uh, programs that we've been doing for many years. They've been successful, they've been compliant, and they fill an important need in the community. So we largely are continuing to fund and continue to refine longstanding programs that are crucial in many respects to Rochester community members. As you'll see in the plan document, when you review it, there is one of the most important tables sections of the plan is the project detail, which will provide the budget for the project and their proposed projected outcomes for what they expect to do for the upcoming year. Here's the remainder of those 25 projects here. In total, we anticipate, that over 100,000 people will benefit from the funds budgeted in this plan across all these different areas. All right, so we have arrived at our first Q&A segment of the agenda. So I'll remind participants, you can submit questions at any time using the Q&A box, and we'll respond to those in writing. And we may also respond to those verbally at the Q&A portions like right now. If you'd like to speak verbally, please use the raise hand button and we will unmute you to speak. All right. I'm just going to pop open our Q&A and take a look at if we have anything so far. We don't have any Q&A questions yet in the box. I'll give our participants another opportunity in case they want to raise their hand. Otherwise, we will continue to proceed with the agenda. At this phase, we're taking questions more on the big picture, planning, the public process. If you have things that might be more specific to a program, I ask you to hold those till after the next section. All right. Seeing none, we will proceed. So this next section will go over in more detail the projects that are budgeted in the annual action plan, and you'll get to hear about what we anticipate to be able to achieve with the funds for the upcoming fiscal year. Again, remind you, if you have questions or comments at any time, please submit those in the Q&A box, and then we'll have another Q&A section after this. First up, I'll review our CDBG funded economic development activities. This is overseen by business development, and we have members, from business development here on tonight in case there are questions or comments. Business development's priorities are to create and retain jobs, increase investment in the city of Rochester, to assist businesses with providing essential products and services to residents. Our business development programs include small business grants, which support advertising, computers, signage, and equipment, as well as our larger loan and grant program called Business Development Financial Assistance, where we might work with larger employers and businesses. Goals for the upcoming fiscal year include continuing to stimulate economic growth and job creation and retention, and supporting some significant projects that include a large textile business and a high technology company that both anticipate retaining a large number of jobs while also creating new positions. In the upcoming plan year, we're budgeting $200,000 to the small business grant program, and the larger financial assistance program has a balance of funds that we'll be able to use without needing new funding to be budgeted. Moving to our street liaison program, which is also now overseen by business development. Goals include to attract and retain businesses that are providing essential neighborhood goods and services in our targeted commercial corridors by providing them access to information to support business growth, attracting new businesses, and supporting economic development activities. The street liaisons, are entities that we contract with. They work closely with business development and the neighborhood service centers to really have a pulse on what's happening in our commercial corridors and to assist with other goals that we may have in each of the quadrants. For the upcoming year, we're budgeting $90,000 in CDBG funds and anticipate that nearly 100,000 people will benefit from these services through helping to enhance and sustain our commercial corridors for nearby residents benefiting. And about 200 businesses will be touched by these services. Moving on to our CDBG funded rehab and demolition programs. Priorities include determining areas of greatest need that would benefit the most from CDBG funding, undertaking planning and analysis of our programs systems to address areas of weakness and to capitalize on program strengths, to address child lead poisoning through the city's lead hazard control program, and to address housing repair needs of low to moderate income homeowners. We have 4 different programs in this category, including demolition, in which we are budgeting $1.8 million and anticipate to demolish 52 buildings. Lead hazard control, which is budgeted with $312,000, anticipate to support rehab of 12 housing units. Owner occupant rehab program budgeted $1.45 million, anticipates to support rehab of 58 housing units. And then our emergency assistance program, which provides emergency support to replace furnaces and hot water heaters. That is anticipated to support 57 housing units in need. In total, it's 179 housing units expected to be impacted, total of $3.77 million. Moving on to our CDBG funded recreation and human services programming. Priorities include maintaining programs and services that promote youth employment readiness, career skills, positive youth development, civic engagement, and environmental stewardship. Most of our programs in this area are run by city staff, and the CDBG funds reimburse the city for the cost of those staff. You'll see if you're reading these documents closely, this year we've consolidated what used to be presented as 5 different programs. We've consolidated it into one program, but these programs will continue to operate independently. It's just a matter of how it's budgeted in the plan. And so those 5 programs are STEAM, Job Creation, Youth Development, Connecting Children to Nature, Employment Opportunity Job Training, and Youth Leadership Civic Engagement. Those are all being bundled together under Youth Development Services and total budget of $641,000. They anticipate being able to serve 4,800 youth through those programs. The other component in this category is the International Plaza, La Marqueta Management, which we contract for services to oversee for programming and support for the operations. That's $40,000 and anticipate that to benefit 5,000 people living nearby that key site. So total of $681,000 budgeted for this category. Next, we'll move on to housing support and development programs. This comprises really the bulk of the city's work with HUD federal grant funding is focused on housing. And these are, we previously, the last few slides, been talking exclusively about CDBG funding. Now we'll also include funding for the other three core grant sources. So starting with CDBG funded housing programs, our priorities and activities for the upcoming year include to provide decent housing and suitable living environments for low to moderate income households through public services and the rehabilitation of housing, to help residents become more stable in their housing units, to provide assistance to seniors to remain in their homes, provide landlord-tenant education, and provide mortgage default resolution. Our current programs include tenant landlord services, foreclosure prevention, aging in place, legal services for seniors, and our Home Rochester program administration. I'll go over those in slightly more detail here on the next slide. So here's our budgeting for those programs. Firstly, Home Rochester program management. This is a contract we have with Greater Rochester Housing Partnership to oversee the Home Rochester program, which rehabs vacant homes and reoccupies those with first-time home buyers, budgeting $183,000 for that. And those accomplishments are counted elsewhere in the plan for home buyer outcomes combined. Our Aging in Place program provides for minor modifications to allow seniors to age in their home of their choosing, remain in their neighborhood. That's contracted and provides $65,000 anticipated to support 275 senior households. Senior Legal Services Program provides funding and through a contract for seniors to get legal services to do things like creation of a will, power of attorney, healthcare proxy, and other types of core legal documents that they will need as they age and to protect them. That program is budgeted $35,000, anticipated to serve 80 households. Then we have our Tenant Landlord Services Program, contracted out and budgeted with $100,000, provides a hotline that allows tenants and landlords to call in with key questions and to ask for resources and direction, as well as landlord training for landlords to improve their business and to become compliant and to learn best practices. That anticipates to benefit 160 households. Lastly, foreclosure prevention, budgeted with $95,000. This provides a contract that helps folks who are facing mortgage foreclosure to work with their bank, come up with solutions that may help avert foreclosure and keep them in their home. We anticipate 81 households served through that program. So in total, for CDBG funded housing programming, $478,000 budgeted and nearly 600 households anticipated to be served for the upcoming year. Looks like we are getting a few Q&A questions in the Q&A box, so keep them coming, and I encourage my colleagues to take a look at those and answer any that you can while we're moving through the presentation. Next, we have our Home Investment Partnership Program funded activities, or the home grant funding. This funding source, compared to CDBG, which is a little bit broader, home is exclusively focused on housing activities, and those exclusively to housing activities to support low and moderate income households. For the upcoming year, we are budgeting first our CHODO reserve, which is actually a minimum spending requirement. We must budget at least 15% of our home funds towards what's called the CHODO reserve. Oops. And that supports the Home Rochester program, which we talked about on the last slide, the program that rehabs vacant homes, turning and reoccupying them with homeowners. So this funding provides development subsidy that supports the rehab of those homes. We anticipate 7 homeowner households to be rehabilitated and reoccupied with that funding. Next, we have our Affordable Housing Development Fund, budgeted at $1.25 million. This project is a pool of funds that will be made available to developers and partners developing or rehabbing affordable housing units. This can support both homeowner units as well as rental units, and it could support both new construction of buildings as well as rehabilitation of existing buildings. And we do everything across that gambit. For the upcoming year, we anticipate 50 rental units to be constructed, 6 homeowner units to be rehabilitated, and 20 homeowner housing units to be constructed. Finally, we have our homebuyer assistance funding. This provides down payment and closing cost assistance to prospective homebuyers to purchase a home. It as well includes pre and post-purchase training for new homebuyers. We anticipate that these funds will support 122 homebuyers in the upcoming year. In total, just over $2 million of home funds budgeted across these activities, and anticipating to benefit just over 200 units or households. Next, we have our housing opportunities for persons with AIDS programming or through HAPA, the next of those 4 major grant streams. These funds are even more limited and are focused exclusively on providing housing costs and supportive services to low-income persons with HIV/AIDS and their families. We have traditionally split our funding between our 2 local qualified providers, Trillium Health and Catholic Charities Family and Community Services, which each operate HOPWA services. We are, again, splitting the funding 50-50 between the 2. And we anticipate a total of 128 households to be served by the 2 entities. Again, this provides things like rent and utility and mortgage support to help these households remain stably housed and get, as well as to provide other wraparound services to support them. And it benefits not just the person who may have AIDS or HIV, but also their families in that may be living with them. Finally, our final of the 4 major grant sources is the Emergency Solutions Grants. These funds are focused exclusively on providing services and supports for people who are homeless or at risk of homelessness. and provides through contracts with our local partner agencies, programming such as street outreach, emergency shelter, homeless rental assistance to get people housed or to help maintain their housing in a crisis, uh, homelessness prevention, and a portion pays for city staff administration reimbursement. So in total, it's just $709. The contracted services component is 655,000, and the city staff admin component is 53,000. You can see accomplishments broken out by the different types. We anticipate 100 households to be assisted with rental assistance and rapid rehousing, 900 people to be assisted through emergency shelters, 200 households to be assisted through homelessness prevention, and 190 supported through street outreach activities. So that concludes the program specific presentation. This is another opportunity to provide comments and questions, either verbally or in writing. And so I'll take a look through, it looks like we had a few questions that came through and in writing and were answered. So I will read through those first, and then we'll go to any of the open questions. First question was, does the city, do businesses in the city help? Do the businesses, sorry. I guess the question is, are businesses also able to access Comida funds in relation to our business development activities? And Thad Schofield, our Director of Business Development, responded saying, yes, many of the businesses that the city assists also have access to Comida benefits and tax abatements. However, generally, Comida benefits are often used by manufacturing firms, while the city programming assists commercial, retail, manufacturing, and high-tech organizations. The city and Monroe County work closely together to assist businesses that create and retain jobs and attract additional investment for the community. So hopefully that addressed your question, Lori. And please, if you have follow-up questions, feel free to raise your hand or submit additional questions in the Q&A box. Next question was, will these slides be available? They are excellent. Yes, these slides will be posted as soon as tomorrow on our website, where we host all of our HUD related core documents and where we post public notices and key things like slides. And it looks like Rita provided a link to that in the Q&A. So excellent. Next question. Can you provide the emergency assistance phone number in relation to helping a neighbor or resident? And that was provided by our contract services team in the Q&A. Lastly, of the answered questions, is there any work being done with the county to keep people in their homes despite back taxes being owed, and even cases where there may be a low amount of back taxes? The county has a list, and groups are interested in advocating for help. And response there from Leah on Solomon, our housing team, that the foreclosure prevention program we discussed and presented is also able to assist households with tax foreclosure issues such as this, and the Housing Council would be the place to start that process. So hopefully that is a good resource. All right. Next, I'll go to unanswered questions in the Q&A, and we'll see if we can provide a verbal response to those. question is, please define low to moderate. I'm assuming you are using AMI based on HUD's 5 counties. Do these projects address those at 30 to 40% AMI? Might the city consider CMI that is based on city only, which is a lot less than the traditional AMI? So this is definitely an area where HUD regulations get pretty technical in terms of income limits for who can qualify for HUD programming. We are required to use AMI. We're not able to use CMI to based on city median income. We are required to use area median income based on those 5 counties, like you're illustrating. Um, and so that is, pretty cut and dry. Unfortunately, the HUD regulations drive a lot of what we do, and there's really no wiggle room. However, that being said, we do prioritize uh, housing activities that meet certain, lower income thresholds than say the 80%. 80% would be the highest income threshold we could serve through programs, but we do also prioritize funding to the lower income bands because we know that there is more of a gap for some of those lower income bands. Leah or somebody from housing, would you be able to just speak to how that works?
Sure. Leah Anselm, part of the city's housing team. Uh, Different programs have different priorities. As an example, for the Affordable Housing Development Fund, often the city will prioritize project proposals that promise to serve certain contingent percentage of households at or below with incomes at or below 30% of the median family income. Um, Most of the newly constructed properties, as well as the Home Rochester properties, are designed to be affordable to households with incomes between 60 and 80%. That doesn't mean that somebody with a lower income can't purchase them. It means that there's a maximum set up. Um, our goal is to follow HUD regulations as much as we can while also serving the wide variety of household types that we have. There are folks who have extremely low incomes, there are folks that have medium incomes, and we need to make sure that we are addressing as many different groups as we can. We do have updated information. It's always based on household size. So, a family of four, the median is assumed to be, what is it now, $107,000. That does not mean that if a single person showed up making $107,000, they would be eligible in the same way. I will stop there. I can talk about income all day long.
I'll just also add that, one other piece of the city's strategy and philosophy is that, we believe that income diversity is very important to healthy neighborhoods and housing projects. We try to have a mix of income ranges in our work. You know, Otherwise, one of the unintended consequences, is repeating mistakes that were made in the past where we, public dollars funded large low-income housing projects and concentrated poverty in areas of the city and caused a lot of unintended bad consequences by in doing so. That income diversity is crucial to supporting amenities for all residents. Having higher income households able to help support businesses where maybe lower income, just depending on lower income residents, they might not be able to stay open. So that is a key piece of how we uh, approach strategy for housing is yeah, income diversity is important. All right. I see Lori has her hand up, so we can move to Lori for a verbal question. Lori, I just unmuted you, I believe.
Got it. Thank you. I'm going to lower my hand too. I'm hogging this. But I really hi Conrad. I really appreciate you all doing this. Leah, thank you, everyone. Um, do we have so you mean no, I'm for the Raise Commission, the housing cart facilitator, 6 years now, going on 6 years. So I continue to need to know, and we have so many experts in our area, you guys, and so I'm very glad for this exchange. It really is very important. Um, I guess I have two questions. One, do we have any idea where the gap is? That those served, that those are great numbers, right? The slides are great, but those served. Do we have any idea where the gap is, where we have underserved, I don't know if you've got those data points. I have some, but how many people are missing out on this? And then a second
Mhm.
question, sort of unrelated, in HUD, with the decrease in funds and everything. Um, can you share anything about your activity to reach out to, I guess, under other funding sources? And I know you guys are very active in doing this.
Sure. Well, we'll try and take those one at a time. So first question is about, of people served, where's the gap, and can we look at data to illustrate who we're serving? So first response is, we are required to publish a performance report each September, which outlines who was served by these programs, including demographic and income breakdowns, so you can get a picture of the folks who are receiving support through these different services. The reality, though, is these funds are quite limited, and as you
Mhm.
were alluding to, when you look at our funding over time, if anything, it's gone down slightly, and the with inflation factored in, the picture does it looks even worse.
Right.
So we have a smaller and smaller pie, and we are one of the poorest cities in the United States. There
Mhm.
is a huge amount of need in the community, and we try to stretch our funding as far as we possibly can and efficiently as we can to serve, the highest priority needs as identified through data and identified through community input. There's a huge amount of unmet need and that we're not able to support. So it's really just a matter of prioritize prioritizing where we can deploy our funds. Um, so I would also ask others if they want to weigh in on maybe, gaps or things like that, in terms of where where it's challenging or other areas. I would also, I guess, before any other folks jump in, I'll also mention we have a housing market study that we've been working on that we hope to release very soon that will provide more data on the housing market and um, including, where the different breakdowns by income and renters versus homeowners, and where we're seeing trends, where we're seeing gaps, and we are using that, the information coming out of that report to continue to refine our strategies, make sure we're targeting, the key issues, the key populations. Um, So yeah, any other folks want to weigh in
Thank
from
you
the city
very
team?
much, Henry. Thank you
Mhm.
so much. That's helpful, and
Mhm.
I'm glad you've got the housing study coming too.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is the only other thing I would add is that um, if we go back to Henry's slide about the funding from HUD being under 2% of the city's overall budget, um,
Mm,
yes, our money is decreasing, and yes, it feels like a never-ending pool of need and, robbing Peter to pay Paul. But a lot of the programs that you see do leverage other funds. Um, so this is not it for what the city is trying to do to support households of all shapes and sizes and all types of needs. Um, this is very particularly about HUD. Um, but the more that we can, and if you've ever met Elizabeth McDade over at Renew, she talks a lot about braiding resources. We're very familiar with braiding resources so that we can do more with less and that, 2 + 2 can equal 5.
Mhm. Yeah, for example, for the ESG funded homeless uh, activities, we do joint planning and budgeting, with Monroe County as well as the continuum of care. They bring, funding streams to the table. We bring our funding stream to the table, and we try to make, decisions that are going to be the best for the community on a whole and really stretch those dollars as far as they can go. And we do that, in other areas as well. Like we have said, a lot of our programs, like the ones delivered through like the Housing Council, they get a variety of funding streams. We're one piece of the puzzle. Our housing development projects that we support, we are frequently a very small piece of the financing of those projects. They're securing financing from New York State and other sources. And you know, our funding is, the last piece of the puzzle to make it possible. Um, So yeah, that is a lot of how things work behind the scenes. Um, and so that segue also to your other question, are we pursuing, other sources of funding that can support this type of work? And I would say yes, we always are. In particular, there's been some newer funding coming through New York State for rehab activities that we've taken advantage of and been able to deploy the THIP and VRIP program um, that is, complementing our longer standing rehab programming. And we have good contacts with New York State to know about upcoming opportunities and pursue those wherever we can. We also just received an additional lead hazard control grant from HUD. So we get our
great.
four main streams that are entitlement grants. We get them every year. There's also competitive HUD funding that you have to apply for more, through our application process. And we've been awarded another round of that, which we'll be deploying, here in the upcoming years. Um, that all said, we've just come out of a period uh, of time where we had an influx of COVID, COVID response and COVID recovery funding, both through HUD as well as through the U.S. Treasury. In total, $250 million plus of additional funding, flowed through the city, and we deployed uh, through many of our programs, complementing many of our traditional programs. Um, so those are finally just kind of coming to a close now. But that's been a lot of additional, obviously a lot of additional funding, supported a lot of additional work, but it's been a lot of additional work on our staff with limited staffing resources. So we haven't necessarily had a lot of spare capacity to take on even more in addition to that of late. But I think we'll be turning our focus to more opportunities upcoming. I see Laura Use asking about pro housing funds. Can you elaborate, please? I think you're still unmuted.
Oh dear, I'm feeding dogs at a household. I'm sorry. Um, just I know we're a pro-housing community and I do now live in Braden, sorry, when I came back. Um, and many of the burbs are and it unlocks certain funds, and I'm just curious, and I saw the whole commissioner's spiel on what pro-housing funds do unlock. I'm just curious, does that help us at all? I mean, from a raise facilitator or cart facilitator perspective, we're always looking at where do we focus. Local is most important, but if there's state and federal where there are some levers we can use. I mean, the pro housing funds come out of the state. Does that help the Rochester community in any way? I know there's some, if you had to do some rezoning, well, ZAP is another topic, which I'm so excited about. But do any of those funds, maybe this is like getting in the weeds here, but do any of those funds help us? I mean, is this, yeah,
As far as I'm aware, there have not been funds through pro housing that are applicable to the city of Rochester. We are aware of, we're glad to be a
sure.
pro housing community, um, but it hasn't it hasn't resulted in any funds as yet.
That's important for me to know.
Mhm.
Thank you very much because, it depends on where you put your advocacy, and if it doesn't, and it may help some of the towns locally, but if it doesn't help us, or here in the city, that's important to know. Thank you. I
All
hope
right.
there's some other people
Mhm.
online because this is important.
Yes, we do have with a couple other guests here. Um, so yeah, I will give another call for any questions or comments from the other guests on what we've just reviewed. There will be one more opportunity for questions and comments at the very end of the presentation. All right, seeing no raised hands or written questions, we will move on. So our next topic is what's called a substantial amendment to an older annual action plan, that 2018-19 annual action plan. So per our citizen participation plan, which outlines our public engagement process parameters, and this is again HUD required. Anytime we amend a plan, we need to evaluate whether it requires additional posting and public comment period. And in this case, it did require public posting comment period because it was of over a certain threshold of funding. So in this case, $15,000 is being shifted between two programs, uh, between funds that were originally programmed for homebuyer training are being rebudgeted to homebuyer assistance to provide homebuyer grants and down payment support. And that is to facilitate timely spending. And we have currently have a good stock of homebuyer training funding and anticipate we will have what we need for the upcoming year. So that is our proposed substantial amendment that is also going to City Council for approval in the June cycle in concert with the upcoming fiscal year annual action plan. The same public comment period, the same opportunities to provide comments in response to the draft. So it's what we call a concurrent public comment period. So if you have anything specific to this, we would love to hear. Yeah, so we have a opportunity for comments, questions specific to that substantial amendment at this time. Going once, going twice. No comments or questions. Continue on. So next portion and the final portion of the presentation is just reviewing the remainder of the public process and additional engagement and comment opportunities. So again, we are here in the middle of the table. We've gotten to our second public hearing. We are in the middle of our 30-day public comment period for the draft plan. There'll be another public hearing on June 11th, overseen by City Council and City Council chambers at City Hall. And that will also be the final day of the 30-day public comment period. So any additional comments need to be either received at that hearing or in writing prior to June 11th to be included in the plan and to, responsive to the plan. Following that, we will provide City Council with the finalized plan, and they will vote to adopt on June 16th, at which time we will then get the plan ready and submit it to HUD basically by the end of June, and to ensure our program year can start on July 1st. So instructions and information for further comments and questions. Again, the deadline for any final comments, June 11th, 7 p.m. We have a web page on the city website dedicated to the consolidated plan and where we host all of our information and documents. We encourage you to bookmark that and because you'll be coming back to it if you participate in these processes. That will be a consistent place where we post important documents and updates. You can also find a link there to sign up for our email list to make sure you get all of our public notices and updates. There'll be more details there on how to submit written comments via email or other methods. And of course, these slides and the video recording will be that we reviewed, tonight will be available. Our, key contacts for questions and comments. We have an email address, hudfunding@cityofrochester.gov. That directs to myself and Rita Rajka, who we are oversee planning and compliance for our federal funding through HUD in the Commissioner's Office, Neighborhood Business Development. And so either Rita and I will respond to you, and we will document your comments. You can also come visit us if you or write to us in snail mail, City Hall, room 224B. All right, that concludes our presentation, but we have one final segment for questions or comments, other general topics, but please keep them related to HUD funding, the planning process, the draft plan that we've reviewed. Any questions or comments? Lori, thank you thank you. We appreciate you being here and your participation. I am seeing no other raised hands or comments, so I want to thank our city staff for being online, supporting this public hearing, and to thank the members of the public who are here online to participate in this important process for our federal funding